We will start with the question as to whether can hospitals handle the Ebola crisis. It's the front page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It asks that question as one of their city's hospitals receives Amber Vinson, the second healthcare worker from Texas, diagnosed with Ebola. There's also news this morning that Ms. Vinson flew on a commercial plane with clearance from the CDC. She didn't have symptoms when she took a return Frontier Airlines flight on Monday from Cleveland to Dallas, but did have a slight fever of 99.5 degrees. She called the CDC before boarding to see if she could still fly. In a carefully worded response, a spokesman says Vinson was not told that she could not fly.
Huh?
Oh
Couple
my
negatives.
God.
Yeah.
Okay. Earlier in the day, CDC Director Thomas Frieden says Vinson should have never boarded the plane because she treated Thomas Eric Duncan. The agency is now tracking down the plane's 132 other passengers, but says they were at very little risk. Still, Frontier Airlines now says it was notified by the CDC that the passenger may have been symptomatic earlier than initially suspected and could have had symptoms while on board the flight. And today on Capitol Hill, from Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital will apologize for making mistakes in the initial treatment of Duncan. According to the nation's largest nurses union, those mistakes include leaving Duncan in an open area of the emergency room for hours and nurses working without proper protective gear. All right, we've got a lot of questions here, and everybody has someone to criticize, and I'd just like to figure out. Let's bring in medical correspondent for PBS's Need to Know, Dr. Emily Senay. And Emily, first of all, how could this woman have been allowed to fly? Is there any possible scenario in which you got that phone call? You would let that person fly? Anybody who is a member of the medical community, would they say that person should fly?
I don't think so. I think if she was symptomatic and reported her symptoms, she should not have flown. There's a lot of information about what's happened in Texas that would be incredibly helpful to all healthcare workers to know, so we could learn from what's happened there on every level, whether it's what type of personal protective equipment the nurses had to how the patient was triaged in the emergency room. These are all things we can learn from, but I think it's pretty obvious that she should not have flown if she had symptoms.
Go ahead.
Dr. Senay, do you know how close we are to having national protocol standards for all hospital workers in all hospitals, big and small, given the Ebola crisis?
Right. So the protocols are evolving. That is true. We've learned a lot from the Texas experience, and I know that all hospitals now are working to sort of double down on the type of protection and the protocols that they will use to encounter these patients. Those are the two most important things in getting a handle on this, and I think that we will. And I think that understanding how to correctly identify a patient when they come in, no matter how they come into a institution, isolating that patient very, very quickly, and then making sure that you activate the infection control people who are the people who are going to manage this patient from there on out. And it's really those people who are going to manage that patient once they have been admitted to the hospital who are at highest risk.
Okay, but we
are not.
Emily,
the average